Hey guys, welcome back to Craig's Horror House, the channel that brings you everything horror, old and new. In today's video, I am going to be taking a look at an old classic favourite of mine, Creepshow 2, which, in my opinion, is better than the first one, which I know might be slightly controversial. I don't know if it's just me, but you guys can let me know down in the comments box. But I have always much preferred Creepshow 2 to Creepshow 1. Creepshow 2 came out in 1987, the same year when I was born, and it follows the same premises as the first film, only this one has 3 stories rather than 5. However, these 3 stories, in my opinion, are absolutely brilliant. There really isn't any weak story. Maybe the first one, which is called Old Chief Woodenhead, it might be a little bit of a slow burn before the action kicks in, but apart from that, these are 3 solid horror tales that I just love. On top of that, this movie just gives off that total 80s horror movie feel, along with an awesome 80s soundtrack. The first movie, in my opinion, was a lot more cheesier than this one, so maybe that's why I prefer Creepshow 2. The 3 stories are Old Chief Woodenhead, The Raft, and The Hitchhiker. Starting off with Old Chief Woodenhead, this one is about an old couple who run a general store that's set in a town that is pretty much deserted. The town seems to have fallen into disrepair, but the old couple, they don't want to leave, they don't want to sell up and move on. They think that things will change for the better in time. They also have this life-size wooden Indian statue, which of course plays a very big part in this storyline. There's a guy called Benjamin Whitemoon, who's a local of the Native American tribe. Now he comes to the store to see the old couple, Ray and Martha, and Benjamin gives them a bag of jewelry, which is his tribe's sacred treasures. Basically, this is payment for debt that his tribe owe them. Now this old couple, they're really nice and friendly, and they don't want to take the jewelry, but Benjamin insists that they have it. Later on, after Benjamin has left, Benjamin's nephew Sam and Sam's 2 friends, they end up coming to the store to rob the old couple of the treasure. Sam wants to go to Hollywood, and he needs this treasure to get him and his friends there. Sam also has this really strange idea in his head that his long hair is already some form of celebrity. It makes him a celebrity status because he has long hair. That will pretty much get him anywhere in life. A little bit deluded in my opinion, but hey ho. Sam and his friends terrorize Ray and Martha before shooting and killing both of them and stealing the treasure. Now when they leave the store, Sam fires a few shots with his shotgun towards the store and 1 shot at the wooden Indian. The wooden Indian becomes alive and is not happy with Sam and his friends for what they've just done. So the Indian paints on his war paint and he then goes looking for all 3 of them for revenge. I can remember when I was really young watching this, I actually was a little bit freaked out by this wooden Indian coming to life, especially the part where he leans up and does this really creepy war cry howling thing. This is why I love old school horror films. They don't make them like this anymore. The wooden Indian then kills the first guy, referred to as Fat Stuff, and the Indian ends up shooting him a few times with his bow and arrow. The second friend, who is the posh boy, is butchered by an axe and his body is left on top of his smashed up car. Then the wooden Indian comes for Sam, and when Sam hears the Indian, he ends up firing a few shotgun shots towards him and he then hides in the bathroom. The wooden Indian's arm then comes flying through the wall and pulls Sam through by his hair, and then the Indian guy proceeds to scalp him, and the story ends with Benjamin coming back to the store the next day and seeing the wooden Indian back in his spot but holding Sam's long hair. I think it's a great story. It does take a little while to get going, but it's definitely a memorable story. Whenever I talk to my friends about Creepshow 2, they always bring up the wooden Indian and of course the blob in the water, which which brings me on to the next story, story number 2, The Raft. Now, The Raft is a story about 4 friends who drive to a deserted lake. A lake that has this big square raft in the middle of it. They strip down to their speedos and their bikinis and they swim over to the raft. However, while they are swimming over, one of the guys, Randy, he spots something floating around in the lake in the distance, and he witnesses this thing in the lake kill and suck in some birds. Now, they all manage to get onto the raft before this thing swims over to them. And this thing in the water is basically this big load of slime, a slime blob maybe, which normally you would think is maybe just sewage or a load of congealed oil or something like that, but this slime thing looks like it has a purpose, and it so does. The 4 friends find this out pretty quick when one of the girls, Rachel, for some reason decides to put her finger in the slime. This slime then grabs hold of her and pulls her in, where the slime monster literally eats her alive. It's actually quite disturbing to watch because you see her stuck in the slime, trying to get out. She's screaming. You can see that she's in a hell of a lot of pain as the slime kills her and just eats her and sucks her down into oblivion. The remaining friends are stuck on this raft, pondering what on earth that they can do. One by one, they start getting eaten alive by the slime. Deke is pulled through the raft, and Laverne gets the slime on her face when she's taking a little nap. Randy ends up taking a risk and swims to shore with the slime chasing him through the water. It's actually really intense, especially when you first watch it. Now, Randy manages to get to shore and then starts shouting and goading at the slime, saying that he beat it. Then the slime jumps out of the water and just swallows Randy, and everyone in the story pretty much dies. What is this lump of slime living in the water? Well, we never really find out. Not that we really need to know. It's better maybe for us audience members' imagination, you know, but it is a really entertaining ride. It might not be scary as such, but there are definitely a few intense moments and some disturbing ones when you see them all getting eaten alive. The third story, The Hitchhiker, I think is my favourite one out of the 3 of them. It's pretty much an old-fashioned tale about a woman who accidentally knocks down and kills a man. She then leaves the scene of the crime in order to avoid any kind of punishment. However, as she's driving away from the scene of the crime, she's pondering to herself in her car and she's thinking, can she live with what she's doing? She then spots something in her mirror and she stops the car for a moment. She turns around and in the distance is the guy that she has just run down and killed. He's there waving and coming towards the car, saying the famous words, "Thanks for the ride, lady." The whole of this story is this woman trying to get away and drive away from this dead man who just keeps coming back to terrorize her. There's a moment where he ends up on the roof of the car and then he's on the side of the window, he's grabbing his hand trying to grab her. He comes from under the bonnet at one point. There is just no getting rid of this guy. The lady shoots him, she runs him down even more, and he just keeps coming back. I love the part where she just loses her shit and she ends up squashing him into a tree and then proceeds to reverse her car and drive at him again against the tree, over and over and over again. She does it so many times. This dead guy, he ends up in one hell of a mess as the story goes on and on. The lady then bangs her head and knocks herself out for a little bit, and when she wakes up, this guy has disappeared and she ends up thinking that it was all a dream. Maybe she came off the road, crashed her car into a tree and ended up having this horrible nightmare. So she drives what's left of the car home, and when she gets to her garage, the crazy dead guy is back. And he is all deformed and not looking very great, and he has this creepy voice and he ends up trying to eat the lady or lick her. Not quite sure what he's doing, but he's getting very up, close and personal towards her. And, nevertheless, the lady, she ends up dead. It's so entertaining, I love it. There are a few jumpy moments and the soundtrack that they use is just so 80s, I flippin' love it. I always remember The Hitchhiker always scared one of my school friends back in the day. I don't know why, but he hated this one when the dead guy was getting more and more mangled. I remember we used to watch the first one, which was obviously the Indian, and then we've got the Blob, but he always used to skip the Hitchhiker. He was so terrified of it. 3 solid stories in my opinion, and Creepshow 2 is just a classic. It's definitely one of those films you love going back and rewatching during a rainy Sunday afternoon or a stormy Saturday night. The movie is full of 80s vibes with lots of nostalgia, 80s horror soundtracks, and 80s atmosphere. If you love 80s horror, then you really should check out this movie. So that's my thoughts on Creepshow 2. Now let's hear some of yours. Do we have anyone watching today who thinks that Creepshow 2 is better than Creepshow 1? Or do you think that they are both amazing in their own little way? I kind of fall into the middle of that category. I know I did say that I prefer Creepshow 2, and I do, but I do love both movies. I'd happily watch them both back to back really, but let me know all of your thoughts guys in the comments box below. Okay then guys, well thank you all for watching today's video. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, stay safe out there, and I'll see you all again very soon.